Morning, everybody. My name is Jared O'Leary. I've been drumming since 1998, and I still got plenty of stuff to work on. In these live streams, I am practicing live while doing Q&A. Think of it kind of like office hours. So if people have questions, they'll sometimes come in here and ask me about how to get better as a performer or how to get better as an educator. And if not, then I'm just sitting here grinding out stuff, practicing. You can find timestamps in the description to show what I was practicing or what I was talking about in all these almost 500 live stream sessions. Now, I often will edit down my response and put them in this drumming tips playlist. It's got over 16 hours of free drumming tips from the Q&A had across these different streams. And there's a lot of different topics in here. The first thing that I talk about is whatever the title is. And then if there are more tips besides that, like more topics, then it'll say and other drumming tips or and other teaching tips. So you can check that out. Now, if you're like, why would anyone ask me questions? Because I've been drumming for almost 30 years, and because I have a bachelor's, master's, and PhD in music education. So I've taught every grade kindergarten through doctoral student in both music education and computer science education context, because I'm a nerd. So people will ask me questions about not just performing, but also teaching. Now, most of my performing has been on rudimental and concert percussion, and literally less than 1% of my time has been on drum kits, so I don't feel comfortable on it yet. So I need Shia LaBeouf here to help motivate me to get better at playing the drums. So Shia, help me out here. We're going to hide him because of copyright. He's here in spirit. Don't you worry about that. Do it! Just do it! Don't let your dreams be dreams. Yesterday, you said tomorrow. So just do it. Make your dreams come true. Just do it. Some people dream success. Well, you're going to wake up and work hard at it. Nothing is impossible. You should get to the point where anyone else would quit. And you're not going to stop there. No, what are you waiting for? Do it. Just do it. Yes, you can. Just do it. If you're tired of starting over, stop giving up. Yeah. Thanks, Shia LaBeouf. I appreciate you. Okay. Do. You can't hear me? Nah, that's a lie. You can definitely hear me. Don't lie to me. All right. Now, I am practicing limb independence. Now, the way that I'm practicing limb independence is I was going through this book. It's called 50 Ways to Syncopation. It's by Don Moyle. So going through this one, there are 50 ways to work on limb independence, and I've gone through all 50 of them live on stream. The way that I'm learning all this stuff is largely based off of Gary Chester's idea of limb interdependence, which you can find in New Breed 1 and New Breed 2. Now, I've taken Dom's book, and I've put it into this spreadsheet. This spreadsheet has all of the different patterns inside of Dom's book, and it allows me to keep track of it. So, for example, pattern number 2, which is your basic, like, ding, 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 and then you play short notes. And long notes on the bass drum, okay? So for that particular pattern, if we go and scroll to the right, you can see the BPM, the quality of the playing, and how I felt while playing this. And column A, on average, says that it is technically proficient. Now, technically proficient means that I'm feeling comfortable while playing this. I'm playing the ink on the page, and it's good. But musical means that I'm adding in extra timbres and textures that are not on the ink on the page and making it so that it sounds better. Now, if it sounds worse than either of those two options, then I label it as meh or needs a lot of work. Now, we're skipping all of these because they're technically proficient or musical. I practice the stuff that I'm not good at yet. So, for example, pattern 52, this is not in Dom's book, is this one. It is a very weird one. I've been working on this for like 2 months now, something like that. So if you take it the pattern like a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a as 16th notes. You take that idea, and instead of playing them as 16th notes, you play them as triplets. So like that. It creates a 3/4 pattern where you are playing 3 of those over the space of 4 quarter notes. So we're going to do that while playing 2 and 4 on the hi-hat. Okay, so we're going to be doing that while playing short notes on the snare drum, swung, and anything longer than that on the bass drum. Okay, so how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to use the free exercises that are on my YouTube channel's home tab or linked at jaredoleary.com/drum, which is here. There's over 2,000 play-alongs and over 16 hours of free drumming tips inside of here. So there's currently 80 chop exercises. My favorite playlist out of all of these is the shopping spree one. Check that one out. It's got 29 shopping sprees. Some of them are easier and some of them are ridiculously hard. There's over 1,000 grid variations. Yesterday I was working on flam drag on one, but there's triplets, 16th notes for a variety of rudiments and some wacky stuff like tap-only, grid, etc. This is where I'm practicing today. I'll come back to that in a moment. There's almost 500 marching bass drum stuff. I'd highly recommend marking time to the timing stuff on the bottom row. And then once you get those down, check out the splits timing. There's a bunch of drumline cadences in score format. There's over 200 sight reading exercises. There's over 400 technique exercises. Just pick a playlist that's the topic for the thing you want to work on, like your flams or your endurance and speed or whatever, and just pick one of the exercises. And then there's over 16 hours of drumming tips in here. These are all like the scripted lessons and whatnot. But this first playlist is the one that I showed at the beginning that has all the different Q&A that I've done on all these different streams. Speaking of, we got some questions already. Was that happy if you know how it... what? I'm not sure. It's just a standard jazz pattern, the one that I was doing. Ding, ding, ding. You do short notes, eighth notes on the snare, and then anything longer than on the bass drum. That's just a common way that people often read charts. How do you build a limb independence to play a samba? So check out the limb independence section. Every single one of these playlists links to this video, which is how to develop limb independence on the drum kit. And it's got steps in here at the very beginning. If you look at the timestamps in here, it's got steps 1 through 7. The very basic step, number 1, then it goes to number 2, and it gives you some exercises to work on for this. So for example, you'll start this for the samba pattern. Etc. So for the samba, instead of like playing just the pattern that I demonstrate in step 1 here, what you do is start with the feet and you go Then the next thing that you do is you just add in one more hand. So for example, if you want or whatever you want, like whatever you want to do for ostinato. And then finally, once you start getting into like actually reading stuff, you're going to play that on the snare drum, etc. But check that one out, okay? So again, it's at the second video in every one of these playlists. If you have questions after you watch that video, you can either leave it on here or just come back into the stream and let me know. But happy to help with that. Most insane polyrhythm. I mean, that's kind of a goofy question. But the thing I'm about to work on today is a 3/4 straight over swung. So that's pretty wacky. But we're going to be doing swung charts. So I'm doing 100 to 159. And I'm just going to pick a set of charts. I think I did like the bottom set last time. So we'll just go ahead and start from the beginning. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to play all of the eighth notes that we see in the charts on the snare drum. Everything else will be on the bass drum. And I'm playing that ostinato pattern that is up on the screen right here. So it's a 3/4 pattern, and it's a straight over swung. You're very welcome. 1, 2, ready, and... So hi-hat on 2 and 4. Da 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 da. This is a straight pattern in triplets on the ride. 1, 2, 1, 2. Here we go. Good at that. Right. Man, I really messed that one up. This is why we're still working on it. So this pattern is hard because it's 3/4, but the next one that I'm actually gonna play through after I stretch and massage is even harder because it adds in a shup pattern on the foot. The reason why like the polyrhythm thing is kind of a weird question is it's not something that typically play. It's more just like something for drummers to be like, ooh, look at this cool thing I can do. But it's not really applicable to most playing. Oops. Man. Rough. Yeah, so this pattern, it's weird like what parts line up with the beat, what parts don't. And it's different than the one I'm about to play that I'm spending more time on. So like I'm messing this one up more than the other one that I'll get to, 53. Cool, so this is the last chart. They're all in groups of 5. There's 55 of them, currently. I'll add more. But when you're practicing it, just go to the next one, so that way you practice sight reading. Man. It's like the worst I've done this in the last like a few streams of this. Okay, so I'm gonna say overall it needs a lot of work. That was rough. My brain was wanting to play the next pattern. It felt out of control when I was doing this. So the next pattern, I'll paste it up here so you can see it. Is this one. So I'm gonna stretch and massage and then I'll like actually grind this one out. But I've been spending more time on this pattern, which is a Soca pattern on the hi-hat. If this were in 16th notes, da-ga-da, 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 buckets, 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 buckets. But instead of playing the 16th notes, I'm going to play it as triplets. So it's going to go buckets, 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 triple-a, 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 while reading swung, eighth notes on the snare, and then everything longer than that on the bass. So it's another 3/4 pattern, like the one that I just had myself on. But we're going to play through it slower when I get to it. But first, I want to stretch and massage. Whew. That pattern, by the way, way harder than I'd recommend for most of them independent stuff. So like the person who's asking about the Samba earlier, much easier to play through that. Or a bossa nova or whatever. Because it's actually in 4 as opposed to 3/4. But Dom's book, 50 Ways of Syncopation, the one that I mentioned at the very beginning, that one has some other wacky stuff where you can do 3/4/4/4. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Or you play in 4/4. So those are some fun patterns. Maybe I'll play that at the end. He's got a couple of those in there. That's like partially what inspired me to come up with pattern 52 and 53 with this 3/4 ride pattern and hi-hat pattern. But also when I took lessons with Dom, he would just like all of a sudden switch feels. So all of a sudden he'd just be playing in a different meter. So he'd do like a 3/4 just by changing the ride pattern and whatnot, and just like completely mess with the groove, but then come back in 4 bars later right with it, with your standard swung or whatever we're playing. And I was like, that's cool. I want to be able to do that. So he inspired these patterns. Last stretch I'm doing, by the way, is just finger to finger. So this stretch and massage routine just takes a couple of minutes to go through, and it keeps my hands healthy after almost 30 years of drumming. Highly recommend it. In the drumming lessons playlist, there's a video that shows how to do this with better camera angles. ASMR. Ooh, enjoy. Free of charge. But with the Samba, once you get the Samba down, a really fun one to try is the Bayon pattern. So you do right, left, both. Right, left, both. Boom, check, boom, boom. Boom, 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 boom. So do that one. That was a fun one. I like that better than the Samba, in my opinion. The amount of time that would be too long to practice. Great question. Let me think about it for a second. Because there's like a couple different things to talk about outside of just that question itself. Doing the quick massage routine. So when it comes to practicing, there are a couple things you need to consider in terms of how long should your practice session be. One is the physical side of things, so you don't want to like cause injury or anything like that, have like repetitive stress injuries. But there's also the mental side of things where you're going to have diminishing returns because you're just mentally not focused enough to be able to practice what you're working on. On the mental side of things, one of the ways that you can try and work through that is to engage in what's called the Pomodoro technique, where you do like a set amount of time where you practice and then a set amount of time where you take a break. For me, I like to do 50 minutes and 10 minutes when I'm either practicing or if I'm like writing stuff like scripts for the drumming lessons, or like when I was an academic doing academic work, like 50 minutes of research, 10 minutes of like walking on the treadmill or meditating or stretching or anything other than the thing that I was just doing. So when you're practicing, if you set those like 25 and 5 or 50 minutes and 10-minute breaks, that can help extend your mental awareness. So that way, every cycle of this, you come back mentally kind of like hitting F5, the refresh button on your brain. So that way you can practice for longer by taking those little breaks. So it seems like you're taking a step back by cutting out that 10 minutes, but really you'll be able to practice like an extra hour or two longer throughout the day to be able to do that. But on the physical side of things, when you start to get to the repetitive stress issues, what you can do is, instead of practicing like something fast, is you can like slow things down and refine things. So you can basically change the order of things you were practicing throughout the day to make it so you can get more time in during the day by front loading the harder stuff first and then going to some of the easier, more like, in order to get to the stuff that has like, how do I want to phrase this? If you front load the more cognitively and physically demanding practice stuff to the start of your day, and then make it so that you gradually get to easier things in terms of like, oh, I'm just going to sit here and just like work out this ostinato pattern. This is a whole lot easier than like refining your technique or playing something really fast. This doesn't really require a ton of mental energy. You just be able to sit here and play this particular pattern while doing whatever it is that you're doing. So what I will do is I will front load the stuff that is harder, the thing that I need to work on most at the beginning of a practice session, or beginning of a writing session or whatever. And then by the end of it, I'll just be like, okay, I'm going to like either chop out at the end or work on some endurance stuff at the end, or just refine my technique at the end. It doesn't require as much cognitive capacity, etc. So the amount of time that you put into practicing is really dependent on, again, the physical side and the mental side of things. But you can actually extend that over time. So on the mental side of things, attention training, like meditation processes, can actually help you to be able to make it so that you're more focused when you are practicing for extended periods of time. On the physical side of things, the more you practice each day, the longer you'll be able to go. So some people will say, well, I can't really get more than 2 hours of practicing in before my hands give out. And they're playing with like these like thin drum set sticks, hit the butt of the mic. But then you look at like rudimental drummers like myself, and we'd be drumming all day, every day. Like we'd get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and have like sticks in our hands immediately, and we wouldn't stop until like 10 o'clock at night or whatever. So we'd literally be drumming all day, every single day. And it was something that we built up over time. So that endurance, whether it's the mental or the physical side of things, can be expanded. So it's kind of like reps with like working out. So let's say you can only lift like 50 pounds doing like a bench press or something. If you do that for like a couple of weeks, try and move it to the next weight up, whether it's like 55 pounds or 60 pounds or whatever it's going to be. So you're going to extend the amount of weight that you're going to be adding a little bit. And then the next like couple of weeks or maybe even a month, you're going to extend it just a little bit more, add on to it a little bit. Same thing for like the amount of time that you're practicing. Maybe you can only focus for 30 minutes right now and get like 30 minutes in. But then if you next week try and push yourself to 35 minutes and try and get like just 10%, a little bit more in there, and have it be focused extra 5 minutes of time in there, then over time, over the course of a year, 2 years, 3 years, etc., then you can make it so that you can practice significantly longer. So like when I was first learning limb independent stuff and I was going through this, I was spending at least 10 hours a day on it. And the reason why I was able to do that is because I had already done drum corps for several years. So I had done all days. I had, at that time, I had finished the undergrad. So I finished like being in a percussion studio and had been used to practicing all day, every day, basically, in order to try and get better on the different instruments that I was playing on. So playing 10 hours a day on drum kit wasn't very difficult for me because I had developed that endurance mentally and physically to be able to do that. But I was taking those like 10-minute breaks in there, etc. Another thing that you can do is like to help with this is to shift between different things. So in your groups of practicing, doing the Pomodoro stuff, so if you're doing like 50 minutes and then 10 minutes, have that first chunk be on one thing, and then have the next chunk be on a completely different thing. It could be a different instrument, or it could just be like, I'm going to work on limb independence for like an hour, and then I'm going to work on technique for an hour. And then you just might like cycle back and forth between the two, or switch to like a new thing each time when you're doing this. So that can kind of like help to keep things fresh. So that way you're not just like sitting there and, well, I did like 10 hours on one thing during the day. That might get like tedious, and you'll start to lose that focus and whatnot. And I say this as somebody who like was not able to do that initially. So when I first started practicing, like 10 minutes of practicing was like an accomplishment. And then eventually it became 30 minutes, and then it became an hour, and then it became like all day, every day. Like that became the eventual thing. So long answer is like it's metaphorically speaking, it's like a muscle that you can improve over time if you continue to push yourself to be able to get just like a little bit more focused, or a little bit longer in terms of how long you're able to practice and get your hands going. Another thing that you can do on the physical side of things to make it so that your like hands get less tired is at the end, what I will do is I will do endurance related stuff at the end of my practice sessions. Hello on the YouTube vertical, by the way. So the sticks that I use in all of those rudimental streams are actually the Hardeman hammers, which are like extra heavy chopsticks, and they're double taped. So they're like 44% heavier than normal marching sticks that are double taped. So they're extra heavy, extra good for working on endurance. And I've played with them for years to the point where like I don't even notice the fact that they're extra heavy sticks. So when I get to these drum set sticks, these feel like nothing. Like I don't even really need to stretch and massage to play with these drum set sticks because they're like super light and almost effortless to play with them. Whenever I'm using them, it's just like I don't have to warm up really to play them compared to when I'm using the marching sticks. And it's because I built up that endurance over time. But when I first started using those heavy sticks, like it was like, what? How do I do this? That was a long answer, but hopefully that helps with it. But if you think about the two main categories of like the mental exhaustion and then the physical exhaustion, try and work on different things whenever one of them gets like exhausted, try and like shift to a different thing. So if you're working on like double bass or something and you're trying to get better at that and you get tired with your legs, cool, then switch over to working on pad stuff with your hands. And then when your hands get tired, then shift over to like an easier, like just getting that ostinato down, etc. And just keep shifting to new different things for each chunk of practice session that you're working on whenever you get either physically or mentally exhausted from working on that. I'm reading through your comment. Is it a same thing in terms of drumline for what you're practicing? So you can approach any instrument with a set of intentionality that will help you to improve. So the way that I approach a marching, like tenor drums or snare drums or whatever, is the same way that I approach like marimba. Back when I played that, I own a marimba. Like when I'm working on stuff, again, I'll focus on the harder thing at the beginning, and then I will sequence it so that it gets easier throughout. As my attention and like physical exhaustion gets worse, it slowly moves to easier things as I'm going. So I won't start with like, I'm just going to work on scales for the next hour. Like that's a boring thing. Or I'm going to like memorize different chord progressions or whatever. That's a really tedious thing. I'm going to save that for the end of that. So again, that intentionality that you put towards the focusing, the front loading, the harder stuff to the easier stuff, is something that you can apply to anything. But in terms of like the amount of time that you spend on different areas, is going to be very different depending on the instrument and depending on how much time you spend with it. So let me show you as an example. These are good questions, by the way. Okay, so on my home tab of YouTube, what I normally recommend as like a snare drummer or tenor drummer or whatever is if you're in drumline, to spend like 50 to 60% of your time on these technique exercises. So this is helpful for refining your playing so that way you can play consistently, and that consistency makes it so that you can play clean with the rest of the line. So 50 to 60% of your time is on that. For the next chunk of time, what I recommend is like 30 to 40% of your time is on grid variations, just specifically focusing on rudiment on one, and then you can eventually get into the wackier stuff. But rudiment on one with triplet and 16th note will go a long way for the basic rudiments like diddles, flams, flam drags, cheeses, flam fives. If you do those, you'll be great. And then 10, at most 20% of your time is on the chop stuff. So this is what I recommend for like a typical rudimental drummer. But for drum kit, I wouldn't recommend spending time on like shopping sprees and grid variations. Maybe you'll work on it with like diddles or with sticking, the different patterns that are for that. But like you don't really need to learn how to do grid with the flam 5 to be able to play on drum kit. Like those kind of rudiments are just above and beyond what is necessary on here. And even with the technique stuff, like they can help with your hands, but there's often more time spent on coordination than there is spent necessarily on technique. Like if you look at a lot of the drumming YouTubers out there who are like really well known for playing on drum kit, they sound great, but their hands, if they were on a snare line, they'd be cut because like their hands are super inconsistent. It doesn't look good. It doesn't sound good. It's very tight sound quality. But when you're the only person playing, it's fine, but you can't get away with that when you're on a drum line. So the amount of time that you spend on stuff for drum kit, like when I'm doing these limb independence streams, I'm just working on limb independence the entire time because I've already done all this technique work outside of that. So I'm spending most of my time on here. So it kind of depends on the instrument. Like with marimba, you need to work on some limb independence. Like if you're playing an ostinato in the right hand versus something else in the left hand, like that is some limb independent stuff you need to work on. But with marching snare drum, The only time that I really needed to know any kind of limb independent stuff was for one specific exercise that Murray Gussick had us do at the Vanguard auditions that I went to in 2005. And like outside of that, never did any limb independent stuff with that. So it's not something to practice. So what you need to figure out is like when you're practicing, what is the most important thing that you need to work on? And then kind of prioritize your time percentage wise and front load that to work on that. So if you want to improve on drum kit, maybe the majority of your time is spent on the limb independent stuff. And then the next thing that you work on is technique stuff. And then maybe you'll work on some other fun things like I just want to play fast for like the last 10% of your time. But for rudimental, it's going to be more spending more of your time working on technique and then grid variations. And then you're probably not even going to touch like limb independence, etc. So every instrument's going to be different and you'll just have to experiment with it. And there are times where like I've worked on some things more than others, whether it's technique or chops or whatever, in order to try and improve on the different instruments. Like there was a time where I was doing a ton of sight reading stuff like every day where I'd read through stuff for like 30 minutes to an hour just so I can improve my sight reading, whether it was on like marching snare drum or sight reading to get better at like sight reading 4 mallet parts using like Bach 4-part charts, etc. So like there's not really an answer that I can give, if that makes sense. But yeah, it comes down to what you need to work on as an individual to improve, but also the type of music that you're playing to improve. Sorry for the long questions. No, you don't need to worry about that. This is so like these are Q&A sessions while I'm practicing. Think of it like office hours. So I'm here to try and get better because we all know after that first thing I played, I definitely need to work on that. But yeah, I'm happy to help out with that. Do I have any shampoo recommendations? Yeah, the one that I'm using is the Invisible 9000. It works really great. It's got extra shine and bounce. It gives me the extra sheen that's right on here. What country am I from? The United States. What country are you from? Anyways, I'm going to play this pattern that I mentioned. So the pattern is the Soca hi-hat pattern. That, but instead of playing it like this as 16th notes, buckets, 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 I'm going to play it as triplets. Buckets, 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 buckets. So it's 3 triplets in the space of 4 counts. So it's a 3/4 pattern. And it's a straight pattern, and I'm going to play swung 8th notes on the snare drum, and then anything longer than that will be on the bass drum. So I'm in the limb independent section. Now this one, 2 days ago, it's the first time that I played it faster than 100, but I'm going to go back to 100 to try and get better. We just did 1 through 5, so I'll go ahead and do 6 through 10. You figured I use the good stuff? Yeah, I do. Okay. Now, because I'm doing it 100, I'm just going to start at the beginning. But if you want to go faster, this can go as fast as 240 with a different playlist. Or, you know, it can go slower, as slow as 40. You are from the United States. I mean, yeah, I said that. Congratulations. You listened to me. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. While you're going buckets, buckets, buckets. 1, 2, 3. It's weird. 1, 2. Wish me luck. Need to flip my mouse over. Sorry, need to flip it over. It's gonna keep doing that. Okay. 2, 1, 2. Ready? And... keep hitting my stick to mess me up. Even though it's daytime in America, it's night in Indonesia. Yeah, it's the morning where I'm at. 8:41 a.m. And it's a nice rainy day in Arizona. I like it. In a desert, you actually enjoy the rain. 1, 2, here we go. Oops. This is why we're practicing this. You know what I'm going to do is I'm going to alternate between this and the first pattern that I was working on that didn't sound very good. So I can keep going back and forth between the two. Because like right now, this one sounds more consistent than the first one. So if I keep switching back and forth between it, it's going to like force my brain to like try and get through it better. Whoa. Wow, that was great. Hit my stick. You passed it? It's okay? I don't know what you mean by that. Yes, I got a lot of tips for you. Give me a second. Okay. So let me adjust something real quick. So the drum trigger was like not hitting all the snare sounds. And so sometimes I just gotta like loosen it, wiggle it around, move it to a new spot, and then tighten it back up again and it'll work better. So I like feel like I have to play the snare drum extra loud for it to work with these mesh heads, but it's not even doing all this. But unfortunately it like creates a issue where I'm hitting my sticks and it was messing up some rhythms. But your question in terms of like, do I have any tips for someone who's trying to make it into open class? I talked about it when I was responding to somebody else earlier, but the thing to focus on most, and I can't emphasize this enough, is the technique stuff. So if you want to actually make it into open class, and especially if you want to make it into world class, they do not care how many snare breaks or tenor breaks that you know. They're never going to ask you like, well, what kind of like drum breaks have you learned? Like, have you learned like Boston's drum break from last year? They don't care. What they care about is how consistently can you play the basic stuff. Literally the technique exercises is going to be the thing that they're going to be focusing on the most. Is the consistency that comes from playing these things, which is why I recommend playing like 50 to 60% of your time working on these technique exercises. And then another version of technique stuff that just focuses on rudiments is the grid variations, which is why I recommend 30 to 40% of your time is working on grid variations right here, specifically for rudiment on one to work on like your flam drags or whatever, like I did in yesterday's like technique stream, and play them slow. Start at 40 beats a minute, go one click at a time, and let it just gradually get faster on the play along. Now, you'll notice that what I'm saying is like 10%, at most 20% of your time is like working on the chop stuff, like shopping sprees or drum breaks or whatever. That's at most. So if you actually want to make an open class line or you want to make a world class line, stop learning the drum breaks, stop learning the shopping sprees, focus on the grid variations for the basic rudiments like flam drags, cheeses, flam fives, flams, and diddles, and the technique exercises, and that is going to set you apart from everybody else who's sitting there like trying to work on their 4 strokes and learning Blue Coat's snare break from last year or whatever. The instructors don't care about that kind of stuff. They want you to play consistently clean. And the way that you can figure out like, well, how do I practice and what do I practice? Under the tips and lessons section, I've got drum lessons like how to hold traditional grip, how to do the stretch and massage routine that I do, etc. Some of the basics things. But this 16 hours of drumming tips and Q&A, the drumming tips playlist, this is where I answer a bunch of questions like what to do to prepare for auditions, like how to prepare for auditions in a month. That one might be helpful for you if you're auditioning in a month. There's stuff like how to improve the second note of a diddle. There's stuff like how to work on relaxed accent taps or what is touch when drumming. These are all questions that have been asked like during all these hundreds of like drum streams that I've done. So there's literally over 16 hours of free drumming tips inside of here that will like help you better understand the things that like somebody like myself as a former caption head and like other instructors look for when they are working with a drum line, etc. Why do I think the Blue Devils play so low this year? I mean, there's just a lot of really good lines. Like there is there was the meme that people were making fun of them because they had a ridiculously hard snare solo to clean. Like the thing that they were playing technically was rhythmically very easy, the shell, but the fact that they went, I think, from like 60 beats a minute to like 200 in the space of just like several seconds, playing while doing add-ins is insane. It is like one of the hardest things that you could possibly do, and in terms of like trying to get that to sound clean. So they were playing very difficult stuff that is deceptively difficult while they were just going up against some groups that were phenomenal. I mean, the fact that they still got 4th place when you had groups like Vanguard, Blue Coats, and Boston just tearing it up. Even Phantom was thrown down this year. Like it's to be expected. You can't win them all, right? Like it's not like they were a bad line. Was their drum break dirty at the beginning of the year? Yeah. I mean, every drum break was. But was their drum break one of the hardest ones to clean? Yeah. It was very difficult. And if you've never taught before, you might look at it and go, what's so hard about that? Try it. Try and actually to clean that with that many people. Like, good luck with that. Do I have tenor videos? Yeah. So, not as many, but... So what I'd actually recommend for tenor drummers is drumming tip number 67. So this one is Intro to Tenor Playing Zones. So the first thing that I talk about in there is the Intro to Tenor Playing Zones. And so I talk about like how do you change your hand positions whenever you're playing on the different drums. So like this is a bad position versus right here, this is a good position for your hands. So this video unpacks that. But the second main chunk of this is how to come up with tenor splits for exercises. Now, because there's like thousands of like free exercises on my home tab, and they're all written out on like snare or bass drum, you're like, well, how do I work on this with tenor drums? That second half of the video talks about how to take like all of these technique exercises and turn them into dozens and dozens of different tenor splits that you can work on to improve stick control, roll timing, or whatever, etc. So I'd highly recommend check out drumming tip number 67 as like a good starting place. But there are other drumming tips in there. I mean, there's over 100 videos, so there's several that specifically just talk about tenors. But disclaimer, I march snare. I taught everything, but like my primary is snare drum. Anyways, let's go back to that first pattern that I did that I was not playing well. And let me paste it up here so you can see it. So again, this is still a 3/4 pattern, still a straight over swung pattern. So it is like one of the harder limit independence patterns that I'm working on, but we're going to play it with the next set of charts, so 11 through 15. So this is just the next set, and I'm doing it at 125. So we're going faster, so we click. And wish me luck. So this one is a triplet pattern in the ride. 1, 2, ready, and da 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 da. So it's going 1, 2, 3, 4. Hi-hat on 2 and 4. 1, 2, 1, 2, ready, and. And sorry, I don't speak Spanish, so I don't know what the question is. I speak English. 2, 1, 2, ready, and. And now I can't really hear the snare drum. Even the hi-hat feels like it's off. There we go. Wasn't opening enough. This is going way better than the first time I played it. Yay! I still like mentally want to switch over to the other pattern. the other ostinato. 1, 2, 1, 2, ready, and. Oops. Read it wrong. Whoa. Woo! This is messing with my brain. As I'm demonstrating, I'm practicing stuff I'm not good at yet. I highly recommend it for you too. Don't just show off when you're practicing. That's a waste of your time. 1, 2, here we go. Okay. By the way, don't leave personal information in the chat like that. That's not good. Don't do that. Just saw it. Let's see. Can I translate that? Play a solo? Nah. I'm here to practice. Speaking of, I'm going to go to the next set of charts. Down here. Limb Independence. We just did 11 through 15, so I'm going to do still swung, but now I'm going to switch it back to the other pattern, pattern number 53, and I'm going to do it with the next set of charts, 16 through 20, and let me copy and paste this so you can see the Soca hi-hat pattern. That is pattern number 53. Whoops, clicked on the wrong one. Nope, nope, there you go. Good job, Jared. Thanks. I've been practicing. Okay, so this one. Same idea in terms of we're doing a 3/4, but this one instead of da 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 da, we're gonna do it as a Soca triplets with shup on the end. Buckets, 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 buckets. Okay, so 3 in the space of 4 notes, and we're doing this with these sets of charts. If it'll let me switch to it, there we go. Good job. All right, so we're doing it at 100. So I'm gonna click. It counts off. I can hear the play along. It's muted on your end because of sync delays. So there's 3 of these for every one of the measures. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, you go 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 1, 2. Here we go. Foot was too high up on the hi-hat. Oh no, I hit my stick. Ah! Hit it again. Woo! Yikes. So I'm going to move my left hand up a little bit more and my right hand over to the left to try and get it out of the way. I'm having to play loud because I can't really hear the snare. Sweet. That was better. You know, it's weird how much easier it is to play when you're not hitting your sticks together. Weird concept. Funny how that works. 1, 2, 1, 2, here we go. Okay, looking at this one, I like to scan ahead on this first line. You can also improvise on the first line, whatever you want to do. This first line's a little weird for this particular pattern I'm playing. 1, 2, 1, 2, here we go. One, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. While you're playing, again, 3 of these Soca patterns on the hi-hat. 2, 1, 2, here we go. We did it. We survived. Barely. Now I'm gonna go back to the first chart again, the first pattern. And I'm just switching back and forth between those as I'm trying to train my brain to get used to them, just being able to jump in and hopefully hit it right the first time. So same idea of a 3/4 straight over swung, but now we're changing the ride pattern, which messes with my brain. So I'm just gonna hit next on here since I'm in a playlist, and it's gonna go to the next set of charts, 21 through 25, and I'm gonna do it at 125 beats a minute, which is faster than anyone's ever played before. True story. This limit independence pattern is so difficult, you need a parental permission to play it. Or the police will come and get you. The drumming police. A 1, 2, a 1, 2, ready, and... Way better than the first attempt at the start of the stream. Progress. Yay! Watch, now I'm going to have myself on this chart. 1, a 2, a 1, 2. Here we go. We did it. We're doing it, Red Band. Okay. This one's got some interesting parts, too. Just skimming ahead. Here we go. What happened, hand? So I messed up because I was thinking about how that pattern was actually written in 3/4. That whole phrasing was all 3/4 phrasing, written in 4/4 time. And when I was thinking about that, I screwed up the ride. 1, 2, here we go. Ooh, I need to remember to add on to something I mentioned earlier about like the mental and physical endurance, but like how to recover after practicing. I've got a video on that. A 1, a 2, a 1, 2. Here we go. Way better than it was at the start of the stream. The start of the stream, it was terrible. It was rough. So let me, before I forget, let me go to here. So earlier I was answering a question about like extending, being able to practice for longer extended periods of time, both mentally and physically. There's a video that can help you with recovering after extended periods of practice. So inside of the drumming lessons playlist, there's a video that's called What to Do 10 Minutes, 1 Hour, and 5 Hours After Drumming. It's one that says Do This After Drumming. It might have a different title because I'm technically doing a title A/B test right now. But inside of here, it's got some different tips on like some different things that you can do immediately after you practice, as well as like some foods that you should eat that can help your brain to be able to process whatever it is that you're working on. So like oils, omegas are really good for your brain to be able to like learn things and to recover from learning. But also some of the things that I talk about are like some different stretches that you can do to be able to improve your recovery, and then elevating both your hands and your legs to be able to improve your recovery, but also icing and possibly even heating and alternating between those. So this video can help out with that. And again, this is in the drumming lessons playlist that is on my home tab of YouTube. You can find that under the tips and lessons section, past all the thousands of play alongs and whatnot inside of here. Okay, speaking of, if you want like all these, I've had fantastic questions today, so thank you everybody who is asking some questions. I edit I can't speak. I edit down a lot of the answers that I give. In fact, a lot of the ones that I gave today, I'm going to work on the edits later on today, and I put them into this drumming tips playlist that's got over 16 hours of tips inside of here. So there's a ton of really good questions that people have asked over the hundreds of streams that I've done on here. So if you want more in-depth content, check out this drumming tips playlist. It's got over 16 hours of tips inside of here. And then again, there's over 2,000. I love you. There's over 2,000 free play-alongs. Under the chop section, just click on the header to show all of these. There's also over 1,000 grid variations specifically just for grid. There's all the limb independent stuff. This is where I was practicing marching bass, drumline cadences, sight reading, technique, etc. Lots of content. If you want to organize neater than what I can do on YouTube, you go to any one of the videos, whether it's like the video on how to develop limb independence or the permutations or whatever, either in the pinned comment or in the description, it links to jaredoleary.com/drum, and this is where all the exercises are organized neater than I can do on YouTube. So check that out if you're interested in doing that. If you see any of the 600 plus videos that are currently listed as members first, they're all scheduled to release for free. But it might be a year and a half from now because there's like a new play along every single day. But because there's over 600 of them, it might be a while. So for example, all of these sight reading exercises come out November of next year, as in not next month, but over a year from now. These all start to come out for free. But there's over 200 of them, and I'm actually currently working on adding even more of them. So if you want that early access, it's 99 cents. That's literally the cheapest that I could possibly make it. Just click the join button underneath any one of the videos on my channel, and then you can get the early access for 99 cents. Again, there's over 600 of them at the moment, and I'm adding more continually, like every month. Just keep adding more and more content. But it will all come out for free, I promise. So I don't sell a book or an app or a course or teach privately anymore. All the content that I create is free. So if you enjoy it, just share it with somebody else. If you don't enjoy it, share it with an enemy. Feel free to ask questions in future live streams. Otherwise, if you leave a question that is not a troll question, then I respond to it either in the comment section on any of the videos or during the next like upcoming live stream, etc. I'm going to call it here. I'm going to get ready for Ghosts of Yote, which we're about to do apparently one of the cooler side quests. It's one of the myths where you're going to like a haunted estate or something. So I'm looking forward to that. I'll probably be about 15 or 20 or so minutes because I got to rearrange everything in order to get ready for that. And then we'll do that for about 2 hours. And then I'll be back tomorrow working on drum pad, working on technique and stuff. But 2 days from now, I'll be back on the drum kit so we can continue to grind out these very difficult patterns that are kicking my butt right now. So anyways, I hope you have a good rest of your day. Thanks again for all the great questions, and goodbye.